What do you guys make of Weidman's fight? It was so interesting. I haven't seen him look that good in years, by the way. I mean, of his last 5 fights, I thought he looked his best in this one. And by the way, the last 5 fights, I don't care about the outcome. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about how he looked and how he presented himself and how he performed. I thought he looked good in those 5 fights prior. Regardless of outcome, he's looked better in this one. I just don't know how we got there. How do you come off of an injury which slows you down? You're not in the gym. You can't practice. I mean, it's one of these things. And even when you get back, you have the psychological effects. How do you do something like that? I would think that there would be immense amounts of pressure on Chris as well. Fights in Atlantic City, right? I mean, he's a hometowner from New York, but he was put there because it's close to his hometown. It was also supposed to be and billed as his retirement fight. It turns out it was not. He has said, no, I'm not retiring. I think I still have some left. He does. He's right about that. I just didn't know that that was the objective. I either misunderstood or he changed his mind. Could also be a combination of the two. But, and I bring that up because when is the perfect time to stop, right? I don't think there is such a thing. Everybody deals with that. Anything you're addicted to or anything that you want to keep doing, but you know you've got to stop. It's not good for you. Something like that. I mean, sports and health and having goals and cutting weight and exercise, these are wonderful things, but I will share with you, they've at least got an expiration date. Can we agree there? So, but if I was to compare it to every alcoholic and every gambler out there, it's always one more drink after this one. It's always one more roll, one more pull the bar, one more time at the tables, and then I'm done. It always is at some point. The only way to stop is you have to stop. There is no last one next. There's a stop. It has to be. So I think that I thought that Chris wanted to go out on top. Good performance, right match, right audience, right microphone, goodbye, closure, I thought. But he continues to march to the beat of a different drum. We have no choice but to admire that. We have no choice but to be inspired by that. Chris has taught us a lot. I mean, what Chris Weidman just did, just for example, the biggest star in our sport is watching and going, how'd you do that? I'm talking about Conor McGregor. Coming off of his Lakers. I mean, you look at it and go, how'd you do that? Okay, it is possible. You can do it. Like, these things are inspiring. There's still a piece of me that knows that game is going to be risky and that last drink or that last time at the table is going to come. And it is very unlikely to end with you beating the house, with you going out on top, with you leaving with a positive memory. Now, maybe that's not important to Chris. Right? When I talk about he marches to the beat of his own drum, he is at a wild level of success. He clearly views the world and challenging situations different than most, which is why he's been able to overcome and exceed in ways that others simply could not. So I'm not attempting to second guess him. I thought the hope that generally doesn't happen was his hope too, which is I can go out on a high note. I thought after his fight in Boston, which was his return fight from the injury, that when Dana said, I hope he doesn't fight anymore, and Chris said, whoa, please, whoa, stop. Don't do that to me. Give me one more. That was about because let's get my feet back under me here. They're under me, and I can win the next one. That's what I thought it was about. But he either changed his mind or I was wrong in the first place. Did you guys think that too? I thought we were watching his retirement fight. I thought that was made clear. BJ Penn had one and never got to it, but BJ Penn got a hold of Dana and said, hey, well, one more. But he had reasons. He had very meaningful reasons. And regardless of what those were, they still had the same premises as Chris's, which were, so I can go the rest of my life feeling a different way. Okay, great. Makes sense, and Dana's going to do it. But I thought that's what we had here. Now, that's before I even get into the X's and O's of the fight, right? Like, if anybody has had some very strange things happen to him, it's Chris Weidman. You guys might remember the night Chris had us having this great fight with Gegard Mousasi. Gegard was so red hot back then. I mean, Gegard's a handful now, but he was so red hot back then. Top 5 guy. In fact, he might have been ranked number 5 exactly. And it was just prior they had changed the rule on what a downed opponent is. Where the hands where the hands had to be, and the palms, and then was that even going to be recognized in this jurisdiction? I mean, it got to be one of these things. So Weidman ended up getting fouled, or at least under the old rule. But under the new rule, it wasn't quite as clear. So he gave confirmation to a referee that once that confirmation is given, that you can't go back on. And it was given without understanding what the consequence would be. I'm just sharing with you, there's a number of very weird things that have happened in Chris Weidman's fights, and this one is no different. There was an eye poke to his opponent. Now, the opponent says that he's going to appeal that decision. I can all but assure you he will not do that. And I base that on one thing, which is 99% of the time, guys that say they're going to appeal a decision don't. They just don't. And they either don't know how, they don't want to go through that process, or they speak to some people and they feel that the decision isn't going to be favorable, so why go to the expense and the time and the process? All right, great. But moreover, I think a lot of you believe it should be appealed, believe that it should be reversed. And I think what you're really speaking to is the reaction and consequence you would like to see happen for eye pokes. Because, see, the reaction and the consequence of what you'd like to see happen is not what an appeal or even the decision that was made would be based on. It's based on what are the rules now. And I agree. We don't have very many rules. I can remember being very irritated when people tried to take a world championship away from Aljo. He was fouled, his opponent was disqualified, which he should have been. The mechanism in place is the belt changes hands. That is subsequent. That has nothing to do with the referee seeing a foul and calling it a foul. Nothing to do with it. And it only bothered me because our sport's only got a few rules. You can't bite him, you can't kick him when he's down, and you can't touch his eyes. So it's very important that with those few rules, that those are followed. Another side to it. A very reasonable side, which is intent. What if I hit him low or poked him in the eye, but I didn't mean to? I mean, what if it was my finger and they're sitting here still and he comes up with his eyes open and runs into them? I mean, you could see where, okay, as unlikely as that might be, but you would see where there is extenuating circumstance, and those decisions need to be decided by somebody, and per our statutes, that's the referee. So, what do you do? And I don't have the answer. This was absolutely an accident, and there was a number of accidents, and they happen all the time. There does seem to me, aside from this fight, just using that as our starting point, there does seem to me, if you poke a guy and it's ruled unintentional, it's still your finger, and there is still a level of responsibility by you for where that finger goes. And if you want to give him a pass on the first one, or you think it legitimately deserves a pass, fine. But is there 2 mistakes allowed to happen in one night? Is there 3 mistakes allowed to happen in one night? Is there 5 mistakes per the rule? Yes, but should there be? Should we do away with that? First off, I'm not saying you should get a pass on the first one. Everybody gives you a pass on the first one. It's the same thing with grabbing the fence. Go ahead and grab it. Cheat, do whatever you want. The first one, you're gonna. It's largely the same part with low blows. And I get a little confused. I scratch my head. I don't really know why. But if you do it a second time, even if it wasn't meant to be egregious, should we start calling it egregious? I think that conversation at least should exist. I really do. I feel as though, right, in our industry, like all, but you have some kind of a standard. So when one referee starts something, then that's just the way it is. And it does seem like referees who really don't want to interfere in a guy's fight, I will hear them say that. I don't want to interfere in the match. I want this to be between them. Well, it's your job to interfere. There's very few rules. Did that guy cheat? You call him for it. I think, this is my opinion. I don't look at myself as a prude. I get that this is a contact sport. I was the first to tell you when it was being called barbaric that it is. I was the first to tell you. This is definitely barbaric, so move on. But I offer no apology. So I don't think of myself as a prude, but I will share with you, regardless of the rule. I mean, let me just give you a different example that you guys have to live your life by, okay? If you're in a car and somebody comes up and hits you, there's an insurance claim. It wasn't your fault, but there's an insurance claim. Your insurance can go up, but it wasn't your fault. Okay, great. A month later, somebody comes and hits you. It wasn't your fault at all. What terrible luck you must have. Now, there's an insurance claim. Your insurance is likely to go up. Now, if you have 3 of those in a 2-year period, the insurance company will drop you, and you'll go, but it wasn't my fault. I didn't do anything wrong. I was like, this is terrible luck. And the insurance company goes, I don't disagree with that. But if you're the kind of person that brings these things or has this kind of luck, I'm not doing business with you. So I'm just sharing with you, like, it wasn't my fault. It's the gloves. It's the this. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But maybe we should relook at that. Maybe. And maybe there is something to be said for intent. But there are better ways to word it, in my opinion. Look, if my hand goes forward and I'm trying to touch you in the chest, or my hand goes forward and I'm trying to touch you in the head, but it ends up touching you in the eye, that right now would be and could be ruled unintentional. And I believe if it's any action being done with the hand, that we can reword that and that I am in charge for where my finger goes. That's what I believe. You want to start calling things accidental knockouts? I throw a fist and it catches you and you go down. But instead of giving me a knock, we call it an accidental knockout because the referee says it didn't look intentional. It was my fist. It was put on his jaw and we're in a fight. I mean, right? It's one of these things. Or if you're going to take the good, you got to take the bad. And if the first one's going to be a pass, can you even is there even room for a second one? I have gone my entire life from 9 years old to 47 years old, competing every single day with another person. Another person in front of me, pushing and pulling, whether it was wrestling, jiu-jitsu, boxing, MMA, whatever. My fingers never touched an eyeball. I don't know what an eyeball feels like. I do not know what it feels like, and I won't know. But there are other people that they get hit in the car and it comes upon them. I'm not necessarily sharing that is completely your fault, but it would appear that the rule does need to be changed, and to make believe that you can get multiple ones in a match. I saw a wrestling match. If you ever did something that was against the rules, the first one was a warning. That's the way that this was. It was like this until like 1993. And there was a match going on. It was a college duel. It was in 1988, and it was close, and it was right at the end. And the guy either hit the guy or he kicked the guy. He just came right and kicked him, or I can't remember what it was. They restart the match, and he takes him right down. He comes over to the coach, and the coach says, What'd you hit him for? The guy looked at his coach after he took him down and won the match with 11 seconds left. He looked at the coach and said, First one's free. Why did I hit him? But all he said is the first one's free. And the coach said, Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah, you should have done what you did. I'm just sharing for you. Like, these things have this miraculous way of going away. As soon as a penalty comes into play. I've heard a number of guys talk about, Justin Gaethje put out that it's the gloves. The gloves go too straight. There's a way to actually curve the gloves. And if the finger's curved, even as it comes out, it can't poke the eye. That makes a lot of sense. I've heard those things. Like, there's a reason in boxing nobody ever pokes the eye, because right, there's no fingers to poke the eye with. Like, I do get that concept. But as soon as a punishment goes into play, the eyes are going to quit getting poked. Keep that in mind. It's food for thought. Accidents happen, no doubt about it. But we've got 3 rules. Don't bite him. Don't touch his eyes. Don't kick him when he's down. And when one of those 3 does get violated, it's different, at least in my opinion. It's different than another infraction.